Psychologists have determined that one of the most stressful events we go through is retirement. It's a heck of a gear change. So this week on the podcast, we're going to talk about dealing with and steering clear of, hopefully, retirement stress here on Red Zone Retirement Program with John Mears.
In football, the red zone is where a team has to make small adjustments to ensure victory. As you approach retirement, you also need to make small adjustments to ensure success. This is the Red Zone Retirement Program with registered investment advisor and enrolled agent John Mears of Mears Money Management.
Hey everybody, welcome into the podcast. John and I here to talk investing, finance, retirement, and stress. Nobody likes stress, Coach. It's not fun. I mean, it could be a good motivator, I suppose, on the football field, maybe, but stress of losing your position to somebody else or something like that. But it's not a whole lot of fun in retirement. So we're going to try to talk about some ways to steer clear of that this week. How you doing?
I'm doing well. As we're recording this, we're getting into baseball season. The Angels are in second place. They've won some games. That'll last for about another week.
Okay.
Then that's it. But
I think my Tigers opened up undefeated for like 5-0 or something like that.
Bad. Yes.
And then, so it was like they were the last team that was undefeated. It was kind of surprising. So.
The stress will set in for the Angel fans.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. In Detroit sports, it'll set in anyway. So
yes.
that happens regardless. Just being a Lions fan this year proved that. Although they were great this year, certainly fantastic this year, but the stress of that championship game was a bit much.
Yes.
But let's talk about money stress, Coach.
We have a different type of stress in retirement. And
you know what? And hey, look, it really is, right? But let's not talk about just the X's and O's. That's pretty obvious. And I know that's great for you in your wheelhouse as a coach and as a financial professional, but the money is important, and certainly money is a massive stress to everybody on different stages of life all the time, right? Whether when you're young, when you first get married, whatever, it can be a stress. But let's talk about the idea of moving into retirement, because that's sometimes we're so focused on getting the numbers together that when we get close to retirement, we go, oh crap, wait a minute, this is going to be I don't have to punch a clock, which is great, but what the hell am I going to do with my day, right? All these different kinds of things that can actually add stress to people, or some people are so identified to their job, it's who they are, that without their job, they go, who am I?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's a big stress.
Yeah. Or now you have to spend time with your spouse. So there's all sorts
or
of
she has to spend time with you and doesn't want to.
Exactly. That's probably closer to the truth. One thing before we get too deep into this, because you're kind of alluded to this a moment ago, we can do the numbers till the end of time, but I tell people that are all worried about money all the time in retirement, and don't get me wrong, that's what we're here to figure out. But right. I tell people, and I heard this, I stole this from an advisor years ago. Often your issue isn't that you need more money, you just need a better plan. And so that is really what we're trying to do here in retirement. At some point, your money is your money. It is what it is. So that's all we're trying to do is figure out, okay, with what we have, now let's come up with a better plan here. And hopefully if you have a better plan, I think that will reduce the stress of retirement.
Oh, definitely. It definitely can. But on the money side. But again, let's talk a little bit about the non-money side.
Yes.
People kind of go, they first sit down with advisors a lot of times and they go, all right, I don't even know what to do with my day. And you see this because you've helped hundreds retire.
Yes. Yeah. And my wife and I just had this discussion recently. She was taking a pottery class. She's no longer doing it, but she's taking a pottery class. And she just ended up she's friendly anyway, but she ended up making a lot of friends. The reality in retirement is you are going to find activities that you haven't thought of right now. My wife hopefully never would have thought of pottery class, but the friend of a friend was doing this and that. And I tell people, I see this so often, I can't even tell you how it happens with everybody. Mm-hmm. You don't know what's happening in retirement, but I have people constantly tell me, I'm so busy. I don't know how I ever worked.
Right.
They're doing stuff during the day. They're running errands. Now, the thing is, you're going to run to Home Depot or Lowe's. You're going to run your errands and you're going to do stuff. You're going to, do stuff around the house. You're going to play some pickleball. You're going to do something here and there. And you'll be surprised how quickly your day goes by. You may even do a happy hour once a week at the local place. I'm telling you, don't stress over it. Let it. What I think people do is they project too far out in the future and they worry about the future.
Right.
So really, at the end of the day, just don't overthink it. Kind of let life play out a little bit. This is one of those stressful stressful things that really isn't a stressful thing. You're going to be finding plenty to do with your time.
Good point.
And,
good point.
And it's just not going to be rush to everything. It's going to be, you're going to do one or two things in the morning, maybe one thing in the afternoon. And you're going to have some afternoons where you're just going to read. So.
And then you're going to be like, God, I'm so busy. And then when you look back, you go, wow, I did like 3 things today. But yeah, so don't overstress. But I get that the first, like, again, walking away from the job and walking into the unknown. Look, as humans, we all know anytime we interject change, it stresses us, right? Mm-hmm. Most people don't do well with it. So just,
absolutely,
take a pause and talk with your advisor, because they've probably coached many people through this, because they've helped many people retire. This is our one and only retirement, most likely. Whereas, John, you've helped, hundreds of, or thousands of people do this. So let's go to point number 2 here. So embrace those new challenges that you just talked about, that some stuff's going to be, on the radar, that some new things could come your way, and they could be great things. They might stink too, but
could be some new challenges that come in your life. Some people actually get into community service and that sort of thing, where they actually want to make a difference in their community. That gets them thinking. I do know one guy that went back and because he had been a businessman and did those small business consultations that they'll do at the local community college, where, a business can get a little bit of help. And he loved doing that because he had been a CPA in his previous life, loved doing this with people. And that got his mind going to it. He did this, into his late 70s, I want to say. He just kept doing it. Loved what he did. So there's going to be things you're going to find out that will stimulate your mind. I would encourage you to find things that do that. And sometimes even part-time work or consultative work can be something you can do after you retire, and you want to do bits and pieces here and there without having the grind or the requirement of a full-time job. Yeah. A lot of times you'll have this specialty, that you can use that people will find valuable, and you can use that.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I'll say this, in keeping our options open, which is our next point, and it's kind of just tying in with the prior point, but I'll use a friend of mine here for this example, Coach. So they moved to Florida. She moved to Florida, and I'm going to, I'm a few years away from retirement, but I'm going to retire here. I'm going to live here for a few years. It's going to be great. I'm going to retire. I'm going to dig it. I'm going to love it, blah, blah, blah. Because she's always had this, move from a colder place, want to go live down at the beach, want to, toes in the sand, all that kind of junk. Well, a couple of years into it, oh my God, I hate Florida. Now, if you're Floridian, don't put us comments in the section and give me a hard time about tell me how great Florida is. This is just one person's story. But the point being is too much traffic. It was too much heat. It was too much whatever, right? Was not for them. So keep your options open, because many people do snowbird it, right? Many people go from different parts of the country down someplace, down to the Florida or to California or whatever. And then they realize maybe that retirement dream wasn't so dreamy after all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're hitting something that I just got back from London. I was visiting my daughter who lives there now. She loves London. London's okay. It's not really my thing, but there's a lot of history there. But she loves it. My son lives in New York. He loves it. And then I know probably my future son-in-law, his grandparents went from the Seattle down to the Florida Keys. They just lived in both places.
Right.
It's where you're going to be at. Yeah, you're going to have to be adaptable wherever you go to. But
if it doesn't work, Coach, that's the point, right? Then just don't beat yourself up too bad that you got to make a change. But also, you're going to have to plan for this. So you are going to have to strategize if it doesn't go the way you want, right?
Yes, you're going to make mistakes in retirement. First of all, let's just get that out of the way. It's going to happen. You're going to make a mistake. You're going to, I bought the new Dodge Ram. I really wish I hadn't done that because I really didn't need it. But again, if I'm helping you through the finances, maybe you could have afforded it, but you just whatever. But there are things that we will help you with, and that and moving to the wrong place has happened. And there are strategies we can use from a financial standpoint to mitigate some of the damage done.
Yeah. And I get right now that that's a bigger animal because of the housing prices, and because of the interest rates. So you're like, oh crap, I'm really stuck. Right.
Yes.
So definitely think it through and be flexible and keep those options open. Just because the retirement dream was to move to Florida, did you do your homework, right? Have you gone enough times to know that that's truly what you want? If not, maybe it's worth it, Coach, to pump the brakes on that and go, you know what, let's go stay, a month or a couple of months, and go back a few times to make sure we're truly happy.
And don't stress over this. Again, this is something we don't need to be stressing over. This is, again, you're going to make mistakes. That's one of the big stress relief things is don't worry about making an error here or there. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's going to happen.
Well, let's keep a little retirement perspective here, Coach, for a second. This concept of retirement, first and foremost, even though everybody and their brother is now doing podcasts and videos about it, right? And Instagram reels and finfluencers, as they call, or whatever the case is. But the concept of retirement, it's not that old, like less than 100 years, and probably really only heavily engaged in truly, if you think about it, maybe the last 50.
Yes.
Because you work till you flip and die, right?
Correct.
Until you cannot go anymore. I mean, Social Security, we've talked about it before, but the concept of this thing, the oranges, turn it on at 65. Well, the life expectancy was 63. So you were dead before you got to use it anyway.
The Social Security hasn't been around for even 100 years.
Right.
So it is a recent phenomenon. And really the idea of retirement, the way we kind of think of it now, really started with insurance companies offering annuities. Like you had some life insurance to protect against this. Now you had some cash value here. Now you could start drawing off of it. So you could actually, like you were just alluding to, instead of working till you drop dead, you could actually there's a little window there. I have a couple of years before I die. I have some money in my insurance account. And so the insurance company say, we're going to annuitize this. We'll give you a couple $100 a month until you die. Is that okay? Yeah, that's fine. And then that just kind of evolved into companies, in the 1900s, in the 20th century, offering some incentives as there's competition for workers to actually offer some pensions. And it slowly evolved, but this has not been the way it is all the time. And it is a recent phenomenon, actually.
Yeah, I saw something just not too long ago. I can't remember where it's at to cite the source, but it was, I think it was like 4 million boomers were retiring like just that week alone. It was sometime here in 2024. It was just like a week. They had done some numbers, run some math, probably based on birthdays, whatever, right? But it was like 4 million people retiring just this week alone. But also it said 2 million people, last year, 2 million boomers never saw retirement because they died early. So keep the perspective too, that many or maybe your friends or counterparts didn't even get the chance to get to retirement. So have a little bit of perspective in that. Count yourself lucky in some ways, even if you feel like you're behind the 8 ball from your finances or whatever the case is, or you're worried that you're not going to have enough. The fact that you've made it long enough to be able to retire in and of itself is kind of a victory too.
Yes.
The money and the math you can sit down and work with with somebody like Coach. And actually that's my final point, Coach, is don't be afraid to find a good financial advisor so that you don't have this retirement stress.
Yes. Yeah. 2 of my best friends growing up, I've already outlived them, and I'm only 60. So that's something that really hits home to me, how fortunate I am to be able to just be alive and be able to do stuff. I remember one time it hit me. I was just going to a movie one time. I was going, I can do this, and I won't name names here, but he can't. And it just really, really hit me that just the little things that you enjoy, you really need to appreciate that. And again, that's why we're here as advisors here, is to relieve you of that stress. You really shouldn't be. We see this all the time. So that's why we tend to be more calm and more pragmatic about things, because we have been there. We have done that. You're really not going to throw anything at us that we haven't seen before. And so we'll be able to guide you through that. And again, just relieve that stress, the worry that things aren't going to be right. And again, you don't always need more money. You just probably need a better plan. And that plan is something we can talk about over and over if we need to.
Well, and I will say that little line you had there about, you guys have seen there, been there, done that. It also depends on the experience of the advisor you're working with. There are advisors that have only been doing this for a couple of years and haven't seen a lot. So,
correct.
When you're shopping around, make sure you're looking for the right person who's got the right skill set and the right licenses and the things that it is that you're trying to accomplish for you. Lots of ways you can do that. You can check people out on FINRA.org. You can go to BrokerCheck. Lots of different places you can do stuff like that. And you can also get some free resources oftentimes from these folks to learn a little bit more about them and their philosophies, like John's books, which we'll show you right now. John has a couple of free books, Diffuse and Tax-Free Retirement in California, that reveal exactly how you can experience zero taxes in retirement and overcome the IRS lien on your 401k, IRA, and 403b, which could threaten your future lifestyle. These are complimentary, so all you have to do to pick these up 100% free is just stop by rescuemyretirement.net. That's rescuemyretirement.net. Fill in the basic info and he'll ship those out to you immediately. That's rescuemyretirement.net for a copy of Diffuse and Tax-Free Retirement in California. So again, folks, thanks for hanging out with us and talking about, just the stress of retirement. It's definitely the X's and O's that's usually the bigger stress. But there's also these other little things that can creep up. And if you don't manage them, they can maybe get a little out of control and maybe not make the experiences, the way that you'd like it to be. And a good advisor certainly, I think, can help with that. And with that said, Coach, let's jump in and do our 2-minute warning. All right, so we got a question this week from Tony, Coach. He says, I'm 50. I'd like to retire at 60. Works kind of well for our conversation today. I'm willing to save aggressively to make that happen. How do I determine how much I need to save? It's causing me a little stress. Works out well for our chat today.
Yes. And that's a great question. That's actually, I run into this quite often, believe it or not. I get people that have done well. They've worked hard. They've already saved a little bit and they're in a good position, but they want to kind of, with the red zone, they're getting ready to score. We want to make sure we finish it off correctly. And so, depending on the time horizon, we can do the math. And so there's basically 4 steps that I do to make sure that we understand where we need to get to for retirement. And, I don't know how other advisors do it. I do it my way, but I do kind of a mini budget. We kind of look at what we need to do, lifestyle wise. And that is a little bit of counseling there. We've talked about that in previous podcast about how to determine what the differences between retirement and what your budget is today. We look at your other sources because there's going to be other sources of income. Traditionally, Social Security, but there could be other things. There could be union pension. And then I will do my guardrails. I'll take a look and say, okay, if you have saved, and I'm using a round number here, like if you need $5,000 a month, that means you're going to have about 1.2 million. And we'll back into that. We'll look at what the distribution rate should be, and kind of back into it and say, by the way, Tony, you need to have 850,000 or 1 million or 500,000. I can actually give you a real number that we can be shooting for. And then the very last thing we do is we'll say, okay, well, what order are we going to go in? Because you have these other income sources. Can we even retire earlier than you want to? Or maybe we have to go maybe 1 more year than you thought, but we can kind of figure that out. It's a great question. We can figure that out. And I'm hoping that if we can give you that number that you're going to shoot for, that will hopefully relieve some of your stress over whether you're going to get there or not.
Well, so I'm thinking about this question, Coach. And so he wants to retire in a 10-year window, right? Or 10 more years of working, right? Before he pulls the trigger. And his basic question is, how aggressively do I need to save? And it's like, well, there's a number of things that obviously you didn't share with us, Tony, but just in general, when you're thinking about this for yourself, first of all, are you lucky enough to have a pension? Does that, because that could certainly change how much money you need to save. Correct. Okay, if you don't have one, have you gone to SSA.gov and have you run a Social Security projection? Have you kind of seen what that number is going to be? Are you factoring that in? And then the other piece that for me that's missing, and anytime anybody mentions anything before 65 is, what is your 5-year window or your plan here, Tony, for medical between 60 and 65? Because that could punch a hole in whatever savings plan you have in mind.
Yeah, that's why we'll do a budget that we need before retirement and a budget after retirement. And then again, we'll do the next thing is the income sources, because a lot of times people aren't aware of other income sources. They may even have a rental that they may need to, cash out of. There's a million things that are no 2 people are the same. So that we do the math. And then again, I can back into what the gap may be, and that can provide the target for him. And that will determine whether Tony needs to be aggressive or not. I mean, we just don't know. We can, again, at some point, we need to know what that number may be. And then we kind of counsel him, by the way, you need to be more stock heavy, you could be more conservative. You need to do this amount a month or so. We can figure that out at that point.
I think people sometimes see these different videos out there and it says save 10% a month to do XX goal by this time frame. It's, if you're looking for that arbitrary of a number, there's probably a million little calculators you could use, Tony, to figure that out. But I think ultimately what you got to do is you got to really put all your information in and do a full, strategy and take a look at this to get an accurate number. You can do the back of the napkin thing probably pretty easy, but if you want the, like the solid true data, I think you got to run that analysis to really get that.
Yeah. I always like these back of the envelope, 5%, 10%, 4% distribution, whatever. These are all very, very, there is some truth to some of these at some point, but again, everybody's different. It helps if you are a NFL team and you have a quarterback who's a number 1 draft pick. I mean, sure, there's things that there are simple, but you also had a team that was in the Super Bowl this year that had a 7th round draft pick. So it doesn't mean that just because there's a rule of thumb, that's the only way to go.
Yeah, there you go. All right, Tony. Well, of course, Coach is reaching out to you since you sent the email question in. You're going to have a conversation anyway. But other folks who you're in a similar situation, or you just, hey, I need to have a conversation for myself. I need to get a strategy or plan together. Well, book a chat with John.net. That's where you go. So go check that out. Get on his calendar at bookachatwithjohn.net. He's in California, and he obviously helps folks in California, but he's got clients all around as well. So, don't limit yourself to just that. If you're not living down the street, you can still get onto a conversation with him at bookachatwithjohn.net or his main website, mearsmoney.com. That's mearsmoney.com. And Coach, we'll see you next time here on the podcast. Thanks for hanging out. Always appreciate you.
Yes. Good seeing you. Thanks.
And so glad I don't have to run laps this week here after doing the podcast with Coach. So thanks for hanging out with us. We'll catch you next time on Red Zone Retirement Program. Hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you get new episodes when they come out on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple. We'll catch you later.
Advisory services offered through Mears Money Management, Inc., an RIA registered in the states of California and Texas. California Department of Insurance License number 0685203.